as before we get too far into the playoffs, congratulations to both the Flyers, who we'll get to later, and obviously the Vegas Golden Knights, getting the first seeds in both the East and West, and the Flyers. It matters some, but not really. But have home ice advantage throughout the playoffs now.
There are some advantages to having the first seed or at least again, home ice advantage for these playoffs. Probably the most important one is you get the last line change, which, believe it or not, is a big factor, especially in these playoffs, because you're looking for every advantage possible. This is it. So the Flyers will have a huge advantage,
especially as you get deeper into the playoffs.
Exactly.
If you're playing these teams, just playing the round robin again. If you say these are the better teams that on paper should be advancing, then those are teams that you want to match the Couturier lines with their best line, the Bergeron line, OV, Kucherov,
Pastrnak,
all them. Yeah.
So there's that. On to the qualifying rounds. So we have a lot of series to break down.
We got a couple. Let's start with the upsets. We got three upsets.
We had all right. So let's break down the Eastern Conference first, then go to the West.
Okay.
All right. In the East, not many people saw this coming. I, for one, had a strong feeling that this would happen, and it did in only 4 games. The Montreal Canadiens upset the Pittsburgh Penguins in 4 games, the 12th seed beating the number 5 seed. This one we're going to do a much more of a deeper dive on, because this is one of our.
We'll come back to
We'll come back to the deep dive.
Let's talk about these series first, then come back.
We have a whole. That's a great idea.
We're going to have a whole thing on the Penguins. So.
Exactly. So we have so much to talk about on the Penguins. We might even we'll probably have our own separate video for YouTube for.
There could be a couple.
Yeah, no, there really could, because
it could be one of the Flyers,
that much to talk about,
the league itself, and Penguins, or whatever else we come up with.
Exactly. So looking at this series, going into it, did you feel like Montreal had a chance?
Like the slogan that's come out of these playoffs is why not us?
Yeah.
3 months out, I'm not that surprised. Sidney Crosby didn't play or really skated until the first exhibition game. And hockey, more than any other sport, baseball some too, but that's more so getting timing right and everything, and getting your arm warmed up if you're a pitcher. That's the most key for training camp and that stuff. Training camp, preseason, all that stuff is so key. Even though it's a much shorter time versus the start of the season, it's still key here. And you weren't I don't even know what was wrong with Crosby, but for the longest time, he just wasn't.
I know he had some sort of, it was like a core muscle surgery that kept him out for quite some time.
Yeah.
And obviously he wasn't the same, but
he had a lucky goal in game 1, but game 1 he didn't look that good. Game 2 he looked better, but he progressively looked a little better, but still wasn't the same Crosby you're used to.
Right.
And realistically, the reason why, it's not a surprise. I'm not doing the Eagles thing of saying, oh, they're thinking we're underdogs and putting a dog mask on my face saying underdogs. There's a reason why because Montreal gave up on the season. They traded away pieces at the deadline. So because
they could honestly help them now.
Yeah, Kovalchuk being one of them off the top of my head.
Who was actually doing really well for the Habs.
Yeah.
And now he's in Washington.
Same with the Blackhawks, too. They traded away Leonard, and now they're going to face each other.
Yeah, which
Leonard
is
and Crawford.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry. But no, so going back to Montreal, though.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
There you go.
I had a Bats moment. You can check that video out too on our YouTube page. But just Pittsburgh's just so much better talent around them than Montreal.
Yes, 100%.
The reason why we even said it for Montreal to win was to carry prices down. They said not that Pittsburgh did not dominate any of those games at all. But
maybe a period or two, but that was it.
Maybe game 2 a bit just because they won. game 2, right? Or was it game 3 they won? Yeah, they won.
No, it was game 2.
But still, with that talent on that team, you got to do better. And we're going to get to this later because I know you want to talk about Christian Jarry. For me, it's not on Matt Murray. It's not on Matt Murray that they lost that series.
That's a big factor right there.
And I'll say the same thing for Hank. Hank's not the reason why the Rangers lost.
He even kept him in the game half the time.
Yeah.
More than half the time for the whole series. So for me,
that's the way the Hurricane series went. I think people thought that's what the Penguin series was going to be.
Right. So the way I'll put it this way is for the Penguins and their goaltending, who should start game 1? I wasn't surprised that they went with Matt Murray. It made sense, but I would have been a little happier if they went with Tristan Jarry instead for the whole series. But for Murray, though, he definitely had some rough moments. That's how it is. There was that one goal. That was
Bobrovsky.
No, it wasn't that. Sorry, no. You know what I'm thinking of? I think it was the goal against Jarry actually in Game 4 where it bounced off his helmet and into the net. But either way, though, Murray.
That's what does it in these playoffs. It's ugly goals.
It's just ugly goal.
Like I mentioned a second ago, but in that Florida Islanders games, that first goal in that game game 4, there was that really ugly goal that the Islanders scored.
Yeah, but no, for Matt Murray, he definitely didn't look his best throughout the series. He didn't look terrible, but he didn't look great. He didn't make the saves he needed to. I think there's definitely a couple goals he wish he could have gotten back. Don't get me wrong.
We'll do a deeper dive on their goaltending later on, but obviously that's the biggest surprise so far. You can make the argument. I'm going to jump to the West for a second here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the East is still up in the air because there's one series still going on tonight, Game 5, and I don't think there was much of a surprise for the Florida Islander series. I like Florida.
No,
I was rooting for Florida, but that was
Florida because I love.
It's Barry Trotz. It was Barry Trotz versus Quenneville. Trotz's system just was too much for Florida,
and it showed. And
Florida still has a lot. Florida has pieces, but they still have a lot.
There's something missing there. I don't know what it. I think it's more so that they need a little bit more help on defense because they have a lot of depth, but they really just have Ekblad there helping. Help leading
they have
the blue
Keith
line.
Yandel, but Keith Yandel's more offensive.
He's getting up there in age anyway, but he's an offensive defenseman. He's. Yeah, but and when we eventually break down Florida's team at some point over the next few weeks and everything, because one of the things I mentioned to Mike,
we did this last off season, and unfortunately there's this playoff stuff going on in between.
Yeah.
The next seasons we did deep dives last year. We're going to do that series again this upcoming season.
Yes.
The first few going to be teams that were just eliminated.
Yeah, and also the other ones are going to be teams that didn't even make the playoffs.
Right, but that just saying Florida there was one of those teams.
Right, but for Florida, we'll break down even more about what they should do in the offseason, where they could draft. That we'll know by Monday, and and so much more. So we'll get into that later. But in the West, as you mentioned, a big one here. Chicago beating Edmonton in 4 games.
The thing that's great about these playoffs is, for me at least, is that outside of some of the round robin games in the West, because I didn't really care, because I feel like all those teams and those 4 are significantly better than the teams that we're going to have to play. The only team that gives me a challenge there is Calgary. The other teams I think they can kind of take, not easily, but fairly kind of easily. Those teams are significantly better than the teams they're going to have to face. But Edmonton is just Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. They don't have much else.
They have no help on defense.
They have
Darnell Nurse.
Yeah, Darnell Nurse and Bear.
I'll put it this way. They're playing the wrong guys. They're not playing Caleb Jones. They're playing guys who aren't doing much on defense, not helping the blue line.
The biggest flub, I guess I'll say it, because we're going to do I'm not going to say most surprising, but just dumb decisions made during these playoffs. The biggest one for me is starting Mike Smith in Game 1. I get last year in the playoffs for Calgary, even though they got swept, he did well, and he has the experience. But
no, they lost in 5 to Colorado.
I thought they got swept by Colorado. I guess I was wrong.
They lost in 5.
Either way,
I'm pretty sure. But anyway, yeah.
Either way, my point being made that he wasn't the whole reason why they lost that series, and I get why he has this playoff experience, but it's not great playoff experience. I'm not saying
his most successful year is 2012 when he helped the Phoenix Coyotes make the conference finals against the Kings, but that was 8 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm not even really saying that at the moment. That Koiskinen is, Koiskinen's 32. You already know what you're getting from him.
Yeah.
He's not stellar. Connor McDavid needs pieces. He needs wingers. He needs a lot. That team needs a lot. And I get bringing Athanasiou over there and James.
And I thought that was honestly a really good move, bring him in.
I think that was more so to help with the speed because they're a fast team. Obviously, Connor McDavid's the fastest player in the league, but bringing Athanasiou does help. But
they had him, also brought in Tyler Ennis, which I thought was very interesting at the deadline. In that first game,
he's a very cheap, good fourth liner. He's gonna end up playing on fucking every team probably.
No, but the crazy thing is they had Tyler Ennis, Andreas Athanasiou with Connor McDavid in Game 1 after the deadline. All of them got goals in that first game because of their speed was phenomenal. And but again.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Tyler Ennis is not the kind of player I would want with McDavid. Athanasiou, I can see, but again, like you mentioned, he needs wingers. Him and Draisaitl can't do everything. You want that 1-2 punch where you have McDavid 1, Draisaitl 2 on 2 different lines to really spread out the scoring. But unfortunately, right now, you kind of have to. You're almost forced to keep them on the same line because that's where all of your scoring is coming from. Sure, you have other guys that are scoring, but not nearly as much as Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid.
And honestly, because it's not even like they don't have much space at all. And obviously, the Edmonton's another team we'll get into later, but they got 223,000 cap. The cap's not going up much. They got to shed some type of salary, and they don't have draft picks. They got 4 this upcoming season, but the one benefit to them losing is they now have a chance at number 1.
If they have a 12.5% chance
if they get Lafreniere, that's huge for
There's his help.
He finally gets a winger. You don't have to use Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on a wing. You don't have to always use Leon Draisaitl on a wing. You still need other pieces, not saying that he's going to completely fix everything because defensively they still have a lot to have to fix.
So looking very quickly at Edmonton, like you mentioned, Mike,
for
they have a first-round pick.
Chicago's sake as well. They don't have great defense either.
No, they don't. They're getting older.
Yeah.
They had what's his name? They sent him over to Buffalo in the Alex Nylander trade. Henry Jokiharju. Jokiharju. They traded him for Alex Nylander 1-for-1. I like the deal, but I thought they got too little.
This makes me really go back to I forget their old GM's name, but
no, he's still there. Stan Bowman.
What? I meant Edmonton.
Oh, I lied. Edmonton. I'm sorry. I was talking on Chicago for a second. About their defense.
I was saying trading Taylor Hall.
Oh, Taylor Hall for Adam Larson 1-for-1. Yeah, Peter Chiarelli.
Yeah, Peter Chiarelli.
But it doesn't help much more because they have Ken Holland as their GM. I'm not a fan favorite of him. I don't think he's done.
They brought in Mike Green.
Yeah, So, for example, here are some of the moves that Ken Holland made. I think
getting rid of Milan Lucic, who was doing nothing for you, and getting James Neal, who isn't the same James Neal, but he'll still.
But he's doing some better.
Yeah, he's providing some offense and some help on the wing. Power play wise, it really helps him. But
so, by the way,
it doesn't really matter much because power play wise, they just throw Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, McDavid out there with Neal, and it's just
Yeah.
shut down. It's incredible.
By the way, speaking about that James Neal, Milan Lucic trade, it was a conditional third round pick involved, and the condition again was pick is transferred if James Neal scores 21 goals or more and Milan Lucic scores 10 or fewer goals than Neal in the season. However, due to the shortened season, the NHL ruled that Edmonton will have to transfer a third round pick either 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, so Edmonton can't really do much in terms of doing better next season, because next season they're going to have the same team essentially. Anthony Seguin is an RFA, which helps unless you just have someone offer sheets and you're like, okay, just take them, just because you don't really have the cap space to take them over. But that's $3 million you get back. That's not a lot, but it's something.
Right. Yeah, I don't think though that for example, going back to Ken Holland for Edmonton, he's not my favorite GM. He's made some moves here and there that I'm questioning for sure, but there's other moves out there that I think he's done a relatively decent enough job to applaud him for though. But
again,
so either
this
way
time
though,
last off season by the time it feels like ages ago, but Connor McDavid was not happy at all with Edmonton. And there's
even
Puljujarvi may come back to Edmonton.
I don't know.
I thought it's he signed a contract somewhere. I know that
he did,
but I think in that clause there's still the potential for him to go back over to the NHL. And I think because the Edmonton made the playoffs this year, I think he's more able to come over. And if he can play as well as he did in juniors, then that's a boost for Edmonton.
Yeah. So one of the things, I'm glad you just mentioned it. So Jesse Puljujarvi did sign to let's say it was Karpa, one of the star teams of Finland's SM Liga, announced that they had to re-sign Puljujarvi. So again, the fact that he re-signed in the Finnish league is very interesting. So what does that mean for Edmonton? Will they be able to? Actually, here it is.
Sign a contract, sure.
So, according to Chris Johnson, Puljujarvi's new contract includes an NHL opt-out clause, which would allow Puljujarvi to sign a new contract and return to the NHL before or during the 2020-21 season. The Oilers do still hold his rights, so he'll be forced to sign with them unless his rights are traded. It's also being reported that Puljujarvi's new contract is only 1 year in length. This means they have time to re-sign Puljujarvi ahead of the 2021-2022 season. That is, if he chooses, of course, to play here in North America.
There you go. And I think that's the goal. I don't think someone's going to say, I want to play in the Finnish hockey league. No offense there, but the goal is usually
not the NHL. Yeah. But again, I just don't get how you miss so bad on a player like Puljujarvi, or just again, maybe he's just so talented that he's worth the 4th overall pick or wherever he got drafted when he did.
Again, that Finnish team in juniors did really well.
It did. No,
he just hasn't been able to transfer it over to hockey or to the NHL. Now, if he can, then that's huge because you can at least put him with Leon Draisaitl or McDavid. Then maybe that can get him going,
and that helps a lot.
And if you get the first overall pick, that's going to make him even more incentivized because you get Lafreniere.
Exactly.
Not that you need any more offense, because
any more number 1 overall picks.
No, but it's not the offense that's your problem. It's the defense that's your problem. That's the same problem with Florida too.
Oh yeah. I agree. So, all right, let's. So for Chicago, they took the series 3-1. Dominik Kubalik. Oh my gosh, he put up 5 points in his playoff debut in a 6-4 Game 1 win for the Oilers. 2 goals, 3 assists. He looked phenomenal. He was a former 7th round draft pick back in 2013 from the LA Kings. So it wasn't even Chicago who scouted him.
I really hope.
Or drafted him.
I really hope they get destroyed, Chicago. I really do, by Vegas.
We'll get into who they're playing.
I just said it. But I
I
really
guess
do
right
hope,
now.
yeah. I really that we can get into it later more, but
Yeah, we'll get into more later.
I really hope they get destroyed because
I don't
I
think
was
they
watching
really will do
I
that
was
well.
watching that their last game against Edmonton, and Pierre was just. This is where we're gonna get expletive on this podcast, but he was sucking the dick of the fucking Chicago Blackhawks the whole time. It makes me want the Blackhawks to lose.
Yes, Witmer.
It makes me want them to lose even more because he was even though I know Tays and Crawford played really well in that game, but he was it's the annoying. Everyone knows how annoying Pierre is, and that's what he was with the fucking Blackhawks. It makes me want him to get swept or just very, very badly get destroyed.
Or both.
Or both.
Jeez, that's great. All right, so let's move on to our last upset. You mentioned we had 3. We got 2 down, 1 more to go.
I predicted this one. Nashville or Arizona
Yes.
upsetting Nashville.
I did too, and I predicted 4 games.
Was it 4 games? It was 4 games.
It was 4 games.
It
was in overtime.
It was almost 5 games, yeah.
It was almost 5, but it was, yeah. Nashville even tied it up late with about with less than a minute to go. And what a great series. The only game that was out of reach was game 3. Other than that, they're 1-goal games, and games 1 and 4 were 1-goal game, 4-3. Game 2 was 4-2.
It was just 2 goals.
Yeah, game 2 was 4-2, and game 3, the only one out of reach was 4-1.
Yeah, I think that one they had an empty net anyways. The Coyotes, so it was really 3-1.
Exactly. They're all within 2 goals, which was a very close series.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that was one series where I liked both teams, so I didn't really care who won. But I'm not a John Hines fan, so that's why my allegiance went to the Coyotes. Right. And I like Tuch.
I mean, plus Tuch. So, but I don't like the way that John Hines has been coaching this team in the Nashville Predators. I think he's a decent.
If Laviolette was still in Nashville, then it would be back.
It would be a different series.
Yes.
So here's my thing about John Hines. I think he's a good coach. I really do. But Nashville does not. Okay. He doesn't fit Nashville, and Nashville doesn't fit him. They have a very different tendency, at least I think they do, in what they are looking for. Like John Hines is on the left, Nashville Predators are on the right. They're pulling different ways. They're playing tug of war. They're trying to get both sides to join them and pulling more.
I don't know why. I also don't know why so many teams fire their coaches or hire coaches so quickly after they fired them. Because there's still so many good coaches that are still
There's Peter Laviolette. There's Gerard Gallant.
There's Mike Babcock. I know he has some issues or whatever Toronto-wise, but I don't think anyone's going to hesitate taking him. I know he has that.
I don't know. It's that kind of stuff goes a long way, and especially with what Babcock was, what happened with him. He's a good coach, but I know he kind of has that love-hate relationship with players, and the same thing players have with him.
So,
but but I was going to say, but
now who else that ability? Who's coaching right now? Who's playing tonight? John Tortorella.
Yeah. Torts. What a goof.
I mean, I know his is a lot more, seemingly more serious, but that was just something that came out. But the whole reason why I don't think that was the whole reason why he got fired. I think it might have been part of it, but it was also because the Maple Leafs weren't playing well at the time.
Of course. No, but I think it's definitely a huge part of it.
And it's also because they weren't making it to the next level. It's why Laviolette got fired, because they weren't making it to the next level. Their teams are going to be in the playoffs. It's just the next jump. It's the next series. It's trying to get those wins. They weren't getting them. Nashville, not since they went to the Cup pretty much. And for Toronto, they have to either go up against Boston or Toronto, so it's always a struggle for them.
Right. So my thing is with
Tampa Bay, sorry, so Toronto.
Yeah, there you go. That's how I had a feeling you meant. But so my thing is with Nashville, and again, we'll further do a deep dive on Nashville and everything. There definitely are some pieces contracts they need to shed. I think
they have one of the best Ds in the league.
They do. They really, really do. They have a lot of good depth.
And they made this. John Hines, I will comment or applaud him on this. He started Saros. That's the best decision.
Yeah, and one that might have been a surprising decision, but I thought it was a rather smart decision. It pretty much kept him in the series, and Saros didn't play bad. It's just the Coyotes just outmatched him.
That's why I generally believe that Seattle's getting Pecorino.
And that's fair. But there's a lot of other options out there, younger options that Seattle could grab.
Sure, but I'm just saying I could.
No,
I don't know why. Absolutely. I just have that vision of him in a Seattle uniform. I don't know why.
He will look good in a Seattle Kraken jersey.
But you know where you're going to get from him, though. He'll do well in the season, but playoffs coming around, then it's shaky.
Well, then that's why you turn to someone that's a younger player, possibly like your goalie, like Thatcher Demko, maybe.
I don't think he's gonna.
Thatcher Demko. I don't know. Vancouver might protect Jacob Markstrom over Thatcher Demko. I'm just saying.
Why would they do that?
I don't know.
Isn't Demko starting for them?
I'm pretty sure Markstrom is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Either way, Seattle's going to end up with a good goalie.
They're gonna protect Thatcher because Markstrom's 30. I mean, he's a UFA at the end of the year, but he's 30.
You would think they would protect Thatcher Demko, but I don't think he will.
He's 24. I think they're protecting Demko.
I would hope so because I love Thatcher Demko, and I think he would be great in Vancouver and is going to win a future Vezina trophy against either. It's going to be between him and John Gibson at some point for a finalist. But,
But changing it over a little bit as the playoffs as a whole and that whole first round or whatever, postseason. I'm not calling it playoffs. It's postseason. No. It's not playoffs. It's postseason.
Postseason.
So anyone in those playoffs, I kept saying playoff. This is a shootout. Like one of the thing was this is the first shootouts in the playoffs. Like no, it's postseason. It's not playoffs. It's postseason.
You could argue postseason and playoffs are the same thing. To me, this qualifying round is just that. It's a qualifying round. It's not the playoffs.
The season's over, but it's postseason. It's not playoffs.
Technically, I've always viewed postseason and playoffs as the same thing. But in this case, it really is more of a postseason than an actual playoffs. So I'll give you that. It's a postseason. It's not the playoffs. Playoffs, again, this is a qualifying round. You're qualifying for the playoffs. Therefore, it's not the playoffs. It's to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, but my biggest surprise, it's not a big surprise, but it's a surprise to me just because I thought, because of a young team at Vancouver, it wasn't even an upset because they were the higher seed. But Vancouver, they advanced. I thought because Hughes and Pedersen were younger in his first playoffs, I thought the experience in Minnesota was going to play a bigger role there, but that clearly didn't happen.
Unfortunately,
I will also make this disclaimer. I didn't see much of the series.
Well, again, how could you? The games were at 10:30, 10:45 every night.
It's also not the series I would really tune.
Right, because again, it's it's not that interesting of a series. It's Vancouver and Minnesota.
As fun as Pedersen and Hughes are, the Canucks have players that I'm just not. That just bore me too. Beagle's one of them. Russell, if he's playing.
Well, yeah, because those guys aren't even like
Tyler Myers, who signed a way bigger contract than he's worth. I don't know.
The Canucks, they still have some work to do. They have a decent amount of depth. They don't have enough of those pieces to really do much damage in the playoffs yet. They will sooner rather than later, but they're getting there.
I will also say this. None of I saw a majority of the games, not all of them, but majority of them. And from the games I saw, the only teams I'd say that looked dominant, or there's no team that I actually think looked that dominant, but looked the best. Even
Carolina.
Carolina being one of them, obviously. Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. And even them, they've struggled. I don't think they've played the best. Vegas at times has Colorado too.
Yeah.
But overall, there's no team that I'm like, I guess for the Flyers' sake or any sake, I
Mhm.
think any team's beatable. I
I
don't think
think
there's
so,
any
and that
team that,
unfortunately includes the Flyers. Any team is beatable, and although
and
the
that's why
Flyers,
I generally think, especially this playoffs, because there was a long layoff and there's still people getting their legs going. Flyers, especially because none
clearly
of their top players have scored at all,
no.
and their round robin. Not that it really matters, but
It would be nice to see them score a goal, maybe two, but they didn't score any, which is scary. But it shows how much depth the team has.
but not that's a bad thing either.
Right.
They're not they're not Patrick Linus. They're not Ovechkins. They're not goal scorers. Connecting's supposed to be, but and JVR too, but
I've
Couturier
always seen JVR as more as a
set up
playmaker.
Neck perfectly
That
on
was a
that 2-on-1.
gorgeous saucer pass last night. I was sick.
Not saying that they aren't producing, but it's just they're not getting the goals. And
Yeah, they're not putting the biscuit in the basket.
Drew has looked a little shaky, I will admit.
Yeah.
But that's the
But
good
we'll
thing
get in that
about.
later.
That's why I think it's a good thing about the round robin. But because of that, I don't think in these playoffs there's going to be any sweeps, at least in this round. I don't see any
Yeah.
sweeps happening.
Well, so again, let's before
We
we
already
kind
got
of
one sweep, and that was the
qualifying round.
Hurricanes. Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't surprise me. Because again, I had Carolina beating the Rangers in 4,
Yeah.
and because I thought the Rangers would have given a little bit of a fight. They
Mm-hmm. I
didn't
agree.
do much, but Carolina just overpowered them. So kind of to briefly break down the series recaps, because I don't think there's really much more series we need to dive into.
No,
So
I think we highlighted the bigger ones.
we pretty much
Well,
did.
the biggest one we're going to preview later.
Yes, absolutely. So in the East, we had Montreal winning 3-1, Carolina sweeping the Rangers, Islanders won 3-1, and Game 5 tonight is still going on to determine who will face the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Columbus Blue Jackets, or the Toronto Maple Leafs, as obviously currently tied at 2 apiece.
Toronto.
And we are both saying Toronto. So there you go. In the West, Mike.
Well, that was my prediction, so
yeah,
sticking to it.
there you go. In the West, Mike, we had those series there.
Sorry.
You're
good. We obviously had Arizona winning 3-1. Vancouver also 3. I think they were all 3-1s.
They were all 3-1 actually.
They're all 3-1.
Yeah. So that's easy. So it was
all 3-1s. Chicago, Arizona, Vancouver, and Calgary all taking it.
Yeah.
And once Scheifele went down for Winnipeg, you knew that series was over. We knew that series was over.
Oh, I 100%. Yeah, and then Laine got injured and everything. Mm-hmm. So that was.
I mean, I think they could have survived without Laine just because.
Right, but Scheifele was a huge loss.
They were able to steal. They were able to steal a game, but that was it. That they couldn't do much else.
One thing I just remembered that I did want to talk about briefly was about the Carolina Hurricanes. This is how dangerous their top line is against the New York Rangers, who, by the way, only scored 4 goals in 3 games. The top line for the Carolina Hurricanes, which consisted of Sebastian Aho centering Teuvo Teravainen on the right wing and Andrei Svechnikov on the left wing. They scored a combined 7 goals and a total of I believe it was 15 points in just 3 games. Svechnikov had 5 points, 3 goals, 2 assists. Aho, 3 goals, 4 assists, and Teravainen a goal and 2 assists. That in just 3 games. That's unreal.
It's unreal, but Rangers versus Bruins, hockey finalists. That's going to be a tough one for that line. Even though Boston isn't playing well right now, I think they're eventually going to get their feet going. I actually think that one's going 7, but I think Boston takes game 1 just because Carolina's
they're more fresh.
Carolina's had the longer layoff, and Mrazek didn't start the last game for them either, so he's even longer.
But which is very interesting. So I actually do want to talk about that as well. Why do you think that that Rod Brind'Amour, the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, went from Peter Mrazek to Chris McElhaney in that game 4. Sorry,
Chris
game 3.
McElhaney plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I lied. Not McElhaney.
Reimer.
James Reimer. Oh, my God. That's right. James Reimer. Oof. Anyway, why did he go with James Reimer instead of Peter Mrazek in game 3?
I believe it was because it was a back-to-back and they were up 2 games. So if it was Reimer, if it was a game they lost, I don't think they would have hated it. But that at least
they still would have gone with Reimer.
Would have at least given Mrazek a little more time off.
Okay.
Back-to-back. Like Anderson. Anderson had to go back-to-back when they played Columbus.
Yeah.
You obviously had the game where Columbus came back and then they won in overtime. And then the next night, Toronto did the same thing. So it's hard, especially in the playoffs. And for Carolina's sake, their weakness is their goalies. So for their sake, more than any other team, I think the best thing is to try to get both goalies going.
Right.
I know for the Flyers' sake, because I know during the intermission they were saying how it was great that the Flyers would have 2 goalies going, which is good in theory. But when you realize Hart's going to be starting the playoffs, and that if Elliott had to go in, it's either because the Flyers aren't doing well or Hart's hurt. Or the team's not doing well. It's just a change kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's great. But
there's a lot of different.
For Carolina's sake, and I only say this because he was on the Flyers, I don't trust Peter Mrazek at all. I don't trust him.
Yeah.
But the thing that helps him is Dougie Hamilton will be back.
Yes, which is a huge help.
I actually, as I've seen more of these games and everything, I think he's their second best defenseman. Slavin's their best defenseman, but he's still top 10 worthy defenseman, Dougie Hamilton. Yeah. But those 2 are key.
No, absolutely.
That's the thing for Carolina. That's the one worry I have for, say, obviously we're Flyers fans, so we're going to stick more towards Flyers when we make these comparisons. But the thing with them is that offensively they're so good, and defensively they are so underrated for how good their defense is.
Yes.
Their weakness is just their goaltending, but the defense
very underrated.
It makes up for that. It's similar to what I'd say is the 2010 Flyers, because they had, no offense to Brian Boucher, I think he does very well for the in between the glass, and Michael
in
Leighton.
Between the bubble.
Yeah, and Michael Leighton. They weren't the best goaltenders, but you had Timonen and Pronger who were good.
Matt Carl, who did great. Even Brandon Coburn, who I very, very almost
him, right?
never praise.
You like him,
Even
right?
he did well deeper in those playoffs.
He's your favorite player, right?
I hate you.
Or was it Luke Shen? I forget. Because right now they're both being scratched by the Lightning.
Oh, God. I will forever love Ron Hextall for dealing both of those players and getting actually decent players back.
If you really realize how that happened,
another asset,
trading Coburn down to get Gudis, and then you got Gudis
for Niskanen.
I think there was something else in that trade too. I think there might have been a pick or 2 or something.
I'm pretty sure we got a first-round pick in that Gudis Coburn trade, which we traded up to get Konechny.
Yep. Yeah, that's an underrated trade there. And I'm not even hating on Gudis too. I think he's a very good defenseman.
No, he's good.
I didn't think he did good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So anyway, alrighty. So looking at
what do you think as they wrap down? There's 2 games left, as we said. What do you think so far of these bubbles and everything in general that the NHL has done? I know your big gripe with the NHL right now was the draft lottery and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'll get into the draft lottery a little bit later on my gripe there. But all in all, though, the NHL, they've been doing a phenomenal job. Probably the best job of every sport going on. MLB's a crapshoot right now. MLS, they've been doing a good job. No complaints there. And just all in all, though. Say again?
Bubbles work. The bubbles work.
Yes, no, bubbles work. Sorry, you just like you said like so fast. It's like the what? I didn't even understand what you said, but yes, the bubble works. They are doing this right. Other leagues, if you want to have a season, pay attention. They are doing this right. They're having two hub cities. The biggest X factor, really, to making this work, it's not in the United States. It's in Canada.
They're
Let
doing it
alone,
better.
honestly, if you are in any other state
And they're
besides the
so
United
Canada is
States, you
so
will be
strict.
fine.
Yeah.
Because
Toronto
one,
didn't even
Canada's strict, and
well,
two,
Toronto didn't even let the fucking Blue Jays play in Toronto, so
exactly, exactly, their own freaking team. But no, I'll put it this way though. Again, like as long as it's not in the United States, you should be able to play because the United States, unfortunately, is so freaking arrogant, and that's just how Americans are. That they get way, they're arrogant. They're get way too cocky about things. That they have that
I guess I should
demeanor
have
of
made this disclaimer. Jeff and I are not making friends in this podcast.
no, we're not. But no, just again, unfortunately, that's just how us Americans
It's
are.
true.
We're arrogant, we're cocky, and everything. We're like, oh, we're the best kind of.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not wrong.
No,
I'm just
exactly.
saying.
No,
I'm saying
because
later on in the podcast too. We're not going to be making friends there either.
oh no, definitely not. But no, so my point is though, if look at every other country right now with how they're handling COVID-19, they're basically back to normal because they follow protocol because they're being safe. America's not doing that, and that's really our biggest problem. And also, that's going back to the four major sports and everything. That's why a lot of these, except for the NHL, isn't working out because everyone is in the United States trying to figure this out when no one really around this whole, the whole area, the whole state, and everything is just
Yeah,
or the
not going
country or
well.
whatever. They're being idiotic about it. So the fact that it's in Canada, that's a big win. Also, one thing that really helps is they did not announce the hub cities till the final moments leading up to the 2014 playoff. Hence, why Vegas was a huge hotspot all of a sudden. So
I
the
see
fact that
you're playing good cop here. Okay, I'll tear. That's all good. That's all good. I'll tear apart the NHL. I have little gripes here. I have little gripes.
There are some other gripes, but I guess I'm the good cop since I'm like
You're playing the good cop here. Because now your best friend Gary.
take away Mr. Bad Cop.
But anyways, I have very little gripes here. The overall playoffs, what they're doing is great. One thing, get rid of the camera that seems to be in the ceiling.
The sky
that
cam. I hate the sky cam.
Awful. You're seeing more stands than you are the game itself.
In the stands.
And it's not even like you're seeing ads or anything in the stands where there's a reason for that. You're making it harder to actually view the game, and you keep going to the goddamn angle every time there's a power play.
It's like why?
Or any kind of offensive zone or something. It's the first thing they go to. It's the worst. And also for the next round, can we please have these times and everything set up beforehand so the team doesn't know at 10 p.m. the night before they play when they're playing?
Please.
Because the Flyers and Golden Knights games, they didn't know when they were playing until after the what was it, Edmonton game?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until after one of the West Coast games.
Pathetic.
It's bad. That's the one gripe I have. Also, I have a little gripe here, and it's with NBC Sports and a little NHL, but it's more NBC Sports. And I hate to do this because I like Doc so much. Change his feed or network where he's not 2 seconds behind.
It's very. It's the way.
If you're trying, because the whole thing here is you're trying to gain, because there was no sports for a while, you're trying to gain an audience. Also, maybe, no offense to NHL Network, but maybe have other games on the other NBC networks, not just NBC Sports and NBC.
Right.
maybe USA, maybe you don't have to show another SVU marathon. Maybe instead, if someone tunes into an SVU marathon instead gets hockey, they watch hockey.
Right. One thing that's very tough with that live streaming is they're being broadcast from 3 different places with shared video.
But I don't know if it's for. I guess it must be Doc's feed, because when Mike Tirico was doing games with either Keith Jones or Eddie Olczyk, there was no delay at all. It sounded like they were there, and neither one of them were actually there. But for some reason, Doc doesn't get precedent.
I don't know. So it's
I guess it's either where he is or there's some kind of
he's in Detroit.
NBC has to give him the best, because if you want people to watch, don't have him on delay, because people are just going to get annoyed at that point. And also,
clearly you are.
Put it on more, like, if there's an afternoon game, put it on NBC. What's going on NBC or whatever, an afternoon game, if you want more eyes to it. Because
and also the other thing is, really quickly here,
because I think that's the best way to
get more attention to your sport.
Exactly, because my way of getting
why have Connor McDavid on at 10:30 at night Eastern
after
time
the first game?
No one's
after the first game,
step and watch it.
Yeah, after the first game, you have it at 3:00 on a Saturday.
Why? Why not
start it?
And
the whole reason like today, Chicago in here was for the audience.
Yeah, and are you really expecting people to stay up after a day's worth of hockey? Stay up at 10:30, and then they'll watch the first period, then go to bed, because what do you know? They're tired. Why? Because they've been watching hockey all day. But the other thing is, like, look at the schedule going on today. The Caps and Bruins, they started at 12. They got down like 2:30, 2:40. There's another game going on right now with the Stars and the Blues, and then they have another game going on 8 tonight.
The game that gets precedence is that one, but it's also Toronto. That's why that one gets precedence, because Toronto has the biggest fans out of anyone.
Yeah.
But going back to my story I was going to tell, and I've probably said it before on this podcast. I know for a fact I've said it to Jeff before, but my story of coming back into watching Flyers games was at the Applebee's that was right here in 2010. The play-in to get into the playoffs, that shootout.
Yep.
We watched the third period, and I think it was the third period we watched at that Applebee's. And when we were just watching it, and obviously bars and restaurants, those are already going to have the games on already. But when you tune into those after not tuning into those, and you're like, oh, wow, this is kind of exciting. And then we came home, we watched overtime, we watched the shootout, and then the Flyers went to the playoffs. And ever since then, I've watched more and more Flyers, more recently, more league-wide stuff, more so because of the 2014 playoff. But I've been carefully looking more and more into the league and everything. And that's just because of one night out, because we were celebrating my dad's birthday or something. Was just happened to be on. And that's how these things happen. That's how you gain fans. That's how you gain an audience. That's not just because there was no sports. It's finding the right time to put these sports on.
Exactly.
That's why I get why you put the first game on. Connor McDavid, the star of your league, the Blackhawks, who won 3 cups. I get that, but then you put them on at 10:30 for the rest of the time. It makes no sense.
It doesn't help your league's viewership. Again,
well, now you have to find another one because you don't have Crosby anymore.
Yeah, true. Especially considering the fact that last year Chicago was in the top 10 markets for viewership.
Mm-hmm.
Look how bad their team did last year, and yet they're in the top 10, let alone top 5, all of last year for viewership. So, what are you doing?
Yeah. That's great that you're getting those constant viewerships, but if you want to gain it out more, it's getting those people that aren't watching you as much. It's the casual sports fan.
I agree.
But also, I hate to say this, and I doubt they're actually going to do this, but I'm sorry, Doc, I like you, but if you can't figure out the network thing for he's not on delay, maybe sub in Mike Tirico. For this playoffs, just for this playoffs.
It's very tough.
I understand why he's not there. I understand why he's not there. I understand why Enzo isn't there because health reasons and everything, being in the bubble. It's a little iffy for them. So I get why they're doing it from home or the studio for Enzo and Keith Jones for that sake.
Right.
But I don't know. They got to fix that. That's my biggest gripe. I don't like the delay.
My only other gripe I will have, and we'll get into this, is the draft lottery. I've said it before.